In 1881, Bill Doolin, the son of an Arkansas farmer, rode into the Oklahoma Territory. He found work at the HX Bar Ranch as a cowboy, a place where the Dalton brothers occasionally worked. He was a skilled cowboy and was equally skilled with his six-shooter. Doolin organized one of the most notorious groups of outlaws, the Wild Bunch, and for 3 wild years the gang robbed trains, banks, and stagecoaches throughout the Oklahoma Territory. But once the best Oklahoma Territory lawmen of the time, Chris Madison, Heck Thomas, and Bill Tillman, got on the trail of Doolin and his gang, well, their days were numbered. Finally, in August of 1896, when Doolin returned to Lawton from his Mexico hideout, he was gunned down by the lawmen. Well, this is just one short story of the Wild Wild West and the Oklahoma Territory of the late 19th century. Unfortunately, the issue of out-of-state subcontractor fraud is a current day's version of this same type of lawlessness in the state of Oklahoma here in the 21st century. Like Bill Doolin and the other outlaws who came from surrounding states to rob from the citizens of the Oklahoma Territory, out-of-state subcontractors who ignore the laws of the state of Oklahoma are thieves as well. And just as the lawmen of the 19th century stopped Doolin and his gang, the 2012 Oklahoma legislature acted to end out-of-state subcontractor fraud. Since 2010, more than $2 billion of Oklahoma taxpayers' money has been spent to build new school projects and other public facilities in the state. As much as 70% of the subcontracts for these publicly funded projects have gone to out-of-state companies, many of whom employ out-of-state workers. At the same time, many local construction businesses have lost as much as 60% or more of their normal work, and their former workers are on the unemployment rolls. Oklahoma law requires any non-resident subcontractor or contractor to register with the Office of the Oklahoma Secretary of State, the Oklahoma Tax Commission, and the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission prior to conducting business in the state. They must also have identification numbers issued by the IRS and the Social Security Administration. These non-resident companies are required to post a bond to assure that all Oklahoma taxes are or will be paid. Failure to post such bond prohibits the subcontractor from performing work under any contract. Non-resident subcontractors are required to notify the Oklahoma Tax Commission, the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission, the Workers' Compensation Court, and the county assessor before commencing work in the state. The prime contractor is also required to provide notification to these agencies of any contract let to a non-resident subcontractor before the non-resident subcontractor begins work. Once work is complete, the non-resident subcontractor must inform the Oklahoma Tax Commission, the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission, the State Industrial Court, and the county assessor of such completion. A majority of these non-resident subcontractors have failed to register with the Oklahoma agencies responsible for collecting the income and unemployment taxes required of all companies doing business in the state. Because these non-resident subcontractors are not paying Oklahoma taxes, including employment, sales, use, and property taxes, and failing to comply with Oklahoma laws, it has created an unfair advantage for out-of-state subcontractors and a loss of tax revenue to the state of Oklahoma, as well as a loss of revenue and employment opportunities for Oklahoma companies and workers. Since the magnitude is so great, it is difficult to calculate the total impact on the Oklahoma economy, but these lost projects, jobs, and revenues have certainly cost the state and its citizens more than just the lost taxes from the construction projects themselves. When an out-of-state subcontractor does not pay taxes, it harms the state economically. And when that project is a public project, like a school, meaning taxpayers' dollars are used to pay the illegal out-of-state subcontractor, well, it makes the fact that they aren't paying taxes that much worse. It is not right, from an Oklahoma taxpayer's perspective, that a Texas subcontractor was paid public funds to do the masonry work on a major public high school project and then did not pay an estimated $160,000 in employment taxes. And when unregistered out-of-state subcontractors force Oklahoma's workers onto the unemployment rolls and don't even contribute to the unemployment coffers, the downward spiral effect gets worse and worse, costing Oklahoma business owners and taxpayers significant amounts of money. Then, when these bad-acting, out-of-state subcontractors bring the materials and supplies in from out-of-state and do not pay Oklahoma sales and use tax, the lifeblood of municipalities is drained, a problem that compounds when you factor in economic theory, which states a dollar circulates through the local economy 7 times. Take, for example, a major Oklahoma City area mall roof project. That $6 million project was won by a Texas subcontractor by less than 1%. That Texas subcontractor was not registered and did not have the required bond. Somewhere between $21 and $42 million of economic activity was lost by the state of Oklahoma to the state of Texas because of this action. At a sales tax rate of 8%, that equals more than $1.6 million in lost sales tax revenue to the state of Oklahoma and Oklahoma municipalities. In 2012, Oklahoma lawmakers said enough is enough and passed a new law to provide for enforcement of the state's registration, notification, and tax laws. Effective November 1st, 2012, the law provides for severe penalties to be levied against out-of-state subcontractors who violate Oklahoma law. The new law requires that all contractors submitting a written bid on a public construction project in Oklahoma shall, upon request, show proof of current employer identification numbers issued them by the Oklahoma Tax Commission, the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission, the IRS, and the Social Security Administration. This means that the contractor is required to have such identification numbers prior to submitting any bid or be subject to a penalty leveled by the Oklahoma Tax Commission of up to 10% of the contractor's total bid. To ensure compliance with this law, all public owners, school board, municipalities, and the like, should require the production of this documentation in all bid documents. Had this law been in effect when that non-registered Texas firm bid $7 million for the masonry portion of a public high school, well, that Texas firm would have received a $700,000 fine. The new law also provides that any contractor that performs work in Oklahoma as a resident or non-resident contractor without first registering with the Oklahoma Tax Commission and the Oklahoma Employment Securities Commission shall be fined by the Oklahoma Tax Commission up to 10% of the contractor's total bid. That means all subcontractors in-state and out-of-state working on a public or private project must register with the appropriate agencies before doing work or be subject to a stiff fine. Had the new law been in effect when the Oklahoma City Mall project was done, a $600,000 fine would have been levied. Lastly, the new law is designed to stop subcontractors from misclassifying employees as independent contractors. Investigations have shown that many non-resident subcontractors have misclassified employees in order to avoid employment tax and workers' compensation costs. The law provides for a 10% penalty of a contractor's total bid if they intentionally misclassify individuals as independent contractors rather than employees for the purpose of effecting procedures and payments relating to withholding and Social Security, unemployment tax, or workers' compensation premiums. When a non-resident subcontractor is working in a discipline that requires a state license, that non-resident subcontractor must also have a license issued by the Oklahoma Construction Industries Board. Those disciplines include electrical, plumbing, and mechanical. In the case of these licensed trades, the non-resident subcontractor must have the license prior to submitting a bid. In fact, all subcontractors are required by law to have their license number displayed on any bid for public or private projects. In addition to technical trade requirements, a non-resident subcontractor must show proof of registration with the Oklahoma Tax Commission and the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission, show proof of a bond filed with the Oklahoma Tax Commission, and must be in compliance with the Workers' Compensation Act and the rules and regulations of the Workers' Compensation Court in order to obtain a license. If a non-resident subcontractor fails to obtain a license, they are subject to penalty and potential work stoppage. In addition to state agencies, owners, and prime contractors need to ensure compliance with the licensing laws so as to ensure safety and timely completion of projects. Non-resident roofing subcontractors are also required to register with the Oklahoma Construction Industries Board prior to submitting a bid for a public or private project. During the registration process, a non-resident subcontractor must show proof of satisfactory workers' compensation coverage as required by the Workers' Compensation Act, compliance with Oklahoma tax laws, and compliance with state laws and local ordinances related to standards and permits. Failure to register can result in a fine and prosecution by the district attorney. Thanks to the Oklahoma legislature and state agencies, the penalties and tools are now in place to ensure out-of-state subcontractors no longer violate the laws and regulations of the state of Oklahoma. Now, it is up to all Oklahomans to ensure enforcement of the laws. State, county, city, and school officials have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure subcontractors are properly registered with and, when required, licensed by the appropriate state agencies by asking all subcontractors to submit proof of such registration and licensing. As the overseers of construction projects, architects, engineers, and prime contractors, are responsible for ensuring their subcontractors abide by Oklahoma's law and regulations by submitting a list of all out-of-state subcontractors to the appropriate state and local entities prior to any work commencing. And subcontractors, workers, and citizens have an obligation to police their own. If you are aware of an out-of-state subcontractor that is not registered with the Oklahoma Tax Commission, has misclassified their workers, or is generally violating Oklahoma's laws and regulations, turn them in. Report them to the Tax Commission or get in touch with the American Subcontractors Association of Oklahoma, and they can report the company you have identified. By doing this, enforcement of the new penalties will reinforce that Oklahoma is serious about enforcing the laws and ending the days of out-of-state outlaws. Together, we can all ensure a level playing field for all subcontractors doing work in the state of Oklahoma, ensuring that this grand land and her businesses, workers, and citizens remain safe, competitive, and economically viable.